This is the Kestrel Country Podcast, where we discuss the people, places, and events all around Kestrel Country. Well, we're excited to be introducing our Home for Christmas series. And on the first one, we have Francis Foucachon, a trained French chef. But co-hosting with me today was Jen Bunch, and we haven't introduced Jen on the podcast before. So I wanted to give an introduction and a little bit about Jen. So Jen, what do you do at Kestrel?
I work here in the office. Keeping track of files.
Keeping us in track.
Helping with other odd jobs as they come up.
And Jen has a lot of unique abilities. She's very talented. But one of the things that she does on the side is work for NSA on catering events. Right?
Yep. We do a lot of dinners. I'm just part of the team, but it's really fun. We get to make a lot of food for a lot of people.
And she's really good at it. I got to be on her team for a called dinner that she was heading up. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. But Jen also has a bunch of skills in pastry, and she has done farmer's market. And so in terms of her abilities on French pastry, she's done it for Francis before.
I have, and that was really fun. I mean, getting to bake it for him, present it to him. He gave me pointers.
And you got to say the name. What was it that you made? Do you remember?
Let's hope Francis doesn't listen
don't
to this.
Listen.
They were vol au vent.
I'm not going to try to say it.
It's just a puff pastry cup, basically. And he put amazing things into it.
Oh, it was good.
It was so fun.
It was really good. But the benefit of it was Jen was testing those out. And so she brought him into the office.
Yeah, I know. I did have to taste it. We had to work with different flour blends till we hit the right one.
Yeah.
And yeah.
There's a lot involved. And butter. Lots of butter.
Lots of good European butter.
And then, of course, you were using shepherd's grain too, weren't you?
I was,
Which is amazing flour. Mm-hmm. But we're getting sidetracked talking about all the food. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so Jen joined me on this one to interview Francis, and we were talking about Christmas meats.
Yes. He had a lot of good things to say.
And then when we turned off the recording, it was amazing because we keep on talking, and there were so many great things to learn from him about. So hopefully we can do a part 2 at some point.
Yes. Definitely need to have him back.
It was so fun. But we're going to be doing Christmas series, and it won't just be food. We're going to be talking about other things too. So stay tuned as we go through it, and enjoy. Welcome to the Kestrel Country Podcast. We are honored to have Francis Foucachon on with us today, which was a fun idea that we hit on when we were discussing the Kestrel Post and Christmas and food and the questions that come up. And Francis is a trained French chef, and I'm going to actually let him tell you his background about it because I don't know.
Well, it goes a long way for me. Obviously, before I went to do theology, I was first trained with one of the Michelin stars in France. In France, food is very important. And so when you get a Michelin star, you really are one of the best chefs in the world. And so that was a lady chef. And so I decided to do the typical apprenticeship. When you do apprentice with a chef, it's hard to get in. But since that chef was the best friend of my grandmother, I got in. Oh. And then you go to school in the afternoon, and so this is a 3-year deal where you end up with an exam at the end, and you have one of the best chefs in the world, like Paul Bocuse, the best chef in the world, was there as my judge. And so there's a lot of pressure on you because they give you the same ingredients 6 at a time, and you have to produce some menus and supposedly following the same recipe. But the end is so amazingly different. Oh. And so same ingredients, but different results means that your training is showing what you have learned to do and not do, what you throw away and then what you use, everything you're using. So that was my training with one of the most tempered chefs in France. She was known, she went to French TV, and she was known for her temper. So she could not keep an apprentice more than a year.
Oh, wow.
So I made it for 3 years, so I graduated. I said, and so I ended up actually knowing all of her secrets. I'm the only one who knew all of her secrets. And in France, the secrets, the gastronomy secrets, it's like you don't want to spy around. It's supposed to be really hidden.
Yeah.
And when she went on television giving her recipes, she never gave the real recipe.
No. Oh.
I knew it. That's it. So, when I give my recipes, just for you to know, I give the whole thing.
Okay.
I don't hide anything.
That's very nice.
That is very nice.
Yes.
So what was your final course that you had to prepare for her?
Oh my!
Do you remember?
I don't even remember because it was actually a whole menu. So there was an appetizer. I totally forgot. Now.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
There was an appetizer, a main dish, and a dessert.
Okay.
And you have a certain amount of time. So again, there's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
I've seen people cutting themselves and panicking. And anyway, I'm glad it's behind me.
Yeah.
I like to cook for the fun and not for the pressure.
So after you got trained for becoming a chef, what did you do next?
Well, I went to the French army. It was at that time everybody had to do that. So I chose the equivalence of the Green Berets because I like mountains, and so I did that in the mountain. And the deal was when I came back from that 1 year training, I would take over the restaurant of that Michelin chef. But something happened during my army time. We were sleeping in igloos. We're doing James Bond when he's got this white uniform skiing down. That's us. Right? And so you have to go to the sleeping bag with your machine gun. So it's not fun. Anyway, the deal was I was going to do a 6-month training with Paul Bocuse, that amazing chef, and then take over the restaurant. She was going to work with me for 2 years to keep the clients and read my own publicity. Anyway, during the army, I got converted. And so I felt like God was calling me to do another kind of a cooking, which was instead of feeding the bodies, I'm going to feed the souls. And so after the army, I turned down the offer she gave me. She never forgave me for that.
Oh, man.
And then I went to, later on I studied and I went to seminary to become a minister. So I was a church planter most of my time with the PCA. However, cooking has always stayed really close to my heart. And so to this day, I still love to cook.
Yes. So then what brought you to Moscow?
Well, I was, like I said, church planter and actually a Christian school planter. So I created 2 Christian schools. And my last one was called the American School of Lyon, which was the first classical Christian school of Europe.
Oh, wow.
And so it just happened that a family from Moscow, I didn't know where Moscow was. I just know that on our accreditation, Doug Wilson signed it. I never heard of him before. And so that family from Moscow came to have a European experience. They chose our city because of our school. They joined our church. They became very good friends. And then when they moved back here, they told me about New St. Andrews College. And we were ready for our boys to go to college. And we were looking for some different places. And we wanted Christian and classical. And NSA was the only one that came up. So we visited here. And my boys decided we're going to study here. We moved here. I was supposed to move back to France to plant another church with my youngest child. And then our kids begged us to stay. And so they said, we're going to make big decisions. And sure enough, they all got married during that time. So we decided to stay. And at that point, I started a French restaurant in Moscow called West of Paris. So we could put food on the table, literally. And then we sold it when my children were done with the college. And that's when I got back to the new ministry I'm doing now, which is teaching theology to the French-speaking world for free.
And that's Huguenot Heritage.
That's Huguenot Heritage, yeah.
Which is fantastic. And it's definitely something to look up. Our next question, though, so as we pivot, because we've got 30 minutes here, is to talk about Christmas. So if you are willing to share your favorite Christmas meat.
Yes, well, first of all, Christmas is my favorite time of the year.
Okay.
I grew up, that was my parents' family of 7. Christmas was the highest time of the year. A lot of concerts, a lot of beauty and food. From the Huguenot traditions, we have a lot of traditions, the Advent breakfast and so forth. So I was looking for, all of my siblings, looking for very much Christmas is coming. And so Christmas was a highlight. And my mother was an amazing cook. My mother really knew how to cook well, and she's still alive. She's 97. And so we had every Christmas goose. I mean, that was the thing. Americans eat the turkey.
Yeah.
No, the French is the goose.
Okay.
They do have turkey too. It's almost like the turkey is a Chevrolet, and the goose is a Cadillac. So anyway, so we had the goose, which was always fantastic. But it was like first the appetizer was a poached salmon with all kinds of fun things around, and then the main goose with chestnut. The famous French chestnut on the fire, but chestnuts cooked in a certain way. And then, of course, the bûche de Noël, which is a dessert that is just a cake in the shape of a log with all kinds of fun things like meringues that looks like mushrooms and stuff. So it's full of colors, it's full of chocolates. Some bûches are really good, some are not so good. But anyway, we had to be very creative, but my favorite Christmas meat, I would say, will be goose, like I grew up with. Okay. But there are also, I'm just ordered actually recently, getting ready for Christmas, some guinea hen. Oh. And some partridges.
Wow.
And so I'm going to be playing with all these birds. Usually it's mostly birds, we eat birds. Yeah. And so we roast them, and then sometimes you stuff them. And so I create some stuffing, so some are my own creations, sometimes I copy someone else. And by the way, when you talk about cooking, very few chefs create things out of nothing, like we say ex nihilo. No, we create because we learn from someone else and then we try to make it better. And that's what I've done with a lot of my recipes, based also on where I am. There are a few ingredients here that I cannot get in France or vice versa. So you have to adapt and create things. So I'm looking for cooking some, maybe goose, maybe for New Year's Eve. Okay. And I think this Christmas is going to be partridges.
So do you have any tips on where to get birds like that here?
Well, there's actually an amazing person in town. Little Moscow, Idaho is amazing. Yeah. Because there is a man called Jacob Hardings.
Oh, yes.
And Jacob Hardings, out of Little Moscow, brings the best high-end food to the whole nation, to the best restaurants in the nation. I mean, he mentioned some that I actually know. I met some of these chefs, and I said, I can't believe you had dinner with him. And I said, I couldn't even get close to him. But he's selling them the best stuff, so Jacob Hardings can get to you. He's in Moscow here. He's the one who just delivered this last week to me. Okay. The guinea hens, the partridges, he can get you foie gras, which is a good thing to use with his birds. Oysters, if you like good oysters, straight from Seattle, shipped overnight, so they're very fresh. Yep. Nice. So we had an oyster party last year, like 6-7 types of oysters. Yep. Absolutely fabulous. And so Jacob Harding is your key man there. Okay. Now you can find, when I looked for geese in the past year in Moscow, there was nobody who had geese. I had to go to Pullman. Oh. Then I get the idea to Rosars to do geese. And they say, okay, we're just going to get 2. I said, okay, I'm buying the 2. So get 2 more. And so they did. And now every year they have actually in the frozen section these beautiful geese. They're pretty pricey. Yeah. But you can serve in one geese like that, you can serve at least 12 people. Okay. So you can get geese here. Now, guinea hens, you can't. But I'm a hunter, so I go shoot them. Quail, things like that. But he can provide these birds for you. Sometimes some come from Scotland. Oh, wow. And so they are, cool. But this year it looks like they had a hard time in Scotland. But so guinea hen, partridges. Then the French has a chicken that's called capon, C-A-P-O-N. It's really expensive. It's really a lot of amazing fat in it. And you can get capon as well here, but I've never bought it here yet. So I'm going to try that maybe one of these days.
Where do you get that?
Well, you have to order it through a place called D'Artagnan out of California. Okay. But then I would encourage you to get with a lot of people because the shipping is expensive because it's all overnight. And so if you get a lot, it's almost the same price whether you have 1 bird or 10 birds. So get together with a lot of other people and get a big package from them. And so you pay 1 shipping and then you can share the birds.
And those, does nobody raise them up here? Can you? Or the birds just don't survive?
Well, no, they could survive. Nobody got the idea.
Oh, okay.
And so I would love for someone to do
To
this.
start raising.
Do that.
Yeah. But we're growing, and then we have cheeses coming in now.
Yes.
And we're going to do. I'm talking to a butcher, looking to a butcher who go to NSA. He's getting married, but he wants to go learn the French cut, and he wants to apply that here. So I'm encouraging him to say, hey, we need to create parallel businesses that really bring to Moscow, Idaho, the best of the world.
Well, and understanding cuts of meat, I feel like I don't understand the cuts of meat. And so, when you're coming up at Christmas time and there's an expensive one, or you're trying to know which one to get and what does it mean when it says this, there's a lot of questions. So an experienced butcher would be incredibly helpful.
It would be. And even the way you catch your birds, I encourage you to check. My son filmed me to cut a turkey a few years ago, and I think if you go, Daniel, Foucachon.com, something like that, he's got it's on YouTube.
Okay.
And so you can get the YouTube, it's free, and then I really show how to cut a bird, so you don't just butcher it.
Right.
And so you can actually cut it and re-put it on the plate in a beautiful shape. There are ways to cut meat that looks nice and without losing the best parts.
So this is off topic, but Mike just shot a pheasant. And so what's the best way to cook pheasant?
Oh, fantastic. Well, tell him he can't do it and give it to me.
Okay, we'll just pass it over. We'll just pass it along.
That's right. Now, so the best way to cook a pheasant, the best way I cook it, anyway, it's I like to roast it. So I have two ways.
Yeah.
You can roast it like you roasted chicken in the oven.
Yep.
Or you can roast it in a French, what do you call it, cast iron, what do you call it?
A Dutch oven?
Dutch oven.
Yeah.
And so Dutch oven gives you, if you make sure it's very hot at first and you color your whole meat so you turn it around without burning it.
Right.
And then you can half close it so the moisture stays inside. Okay. So I use a lot of my Dutch oven for that, for birds. If you cook it in the oven, roast it in the oven, you have to regularly get some of the fat that falls in the bottom and pour it on the top. I like to leave the skin on the bird, and so the skin preserves the flavors and the moisture as well. And sometimes, if you really want to have fun with a pheasant, you get these black truffles.
Oh,
Okay,
of course.
and Jacob Harding can get his truffle for you. They're very expensive.
Yeah.
When you have them, your whole house is going to be smelling truffle. But you slice this black truffle and you slice it and put it in between the meat and the skin.
Oh.
And so as you cook it, what's happening is the skin protects it and all the flavors are going right through the meat. It's really fabulous. And once you taste the real truffle, you will throw away your oil truffle. I can taste in a dish oil truffle and I can't stand it.
Okay.
It's just not good. But the real fresh truffle is really fun. So truffle inside, then you can stuff them. So sometimes I stuff my pheasant, especially during the holidays, with chestnut. So what I do is I cook them ahead of time. And then I mix them, I put some cognac or brandy with it, and I cook them with apples. So the chestnut is pretty dry. So if you mix the apples and the chestnut together and cook them slowly and add a little bit of if you have your own chicken stock or white stock, that goes well with it too, so it stays moist. And then you put that inside the bird. And then you cook it like that. So again, the truffle flavors are going to go through the meat, and then the inside is going to come out. Then you can add foie gras to that. Then you really have the top. After that, anything that is coming to your juice, the bottom, then when it's cooked, roasted good enough, you don't want to overcook it, by the way. If you overcook it, it dries. So you don't want to overcook it, and so the size would depend how long you cook it. But then you let it rest a little bit and take the fat off the top because the fat goes on the surface. Clean a little bit of the fat, and then you can have the most fantastic jus. Then you just use a blender and then filter it and then pour it over your birds, and then you have all the flavors coming out on the juice.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds amazing.
It does. It sounds fantastic.
It's a lot of fun. That's why I say I like Christmas, because that's why we do it a lot of this
It's
stuff.
the over the top.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when you're supposed to do that.
So if you're brand new what would your recommendation be? First Christmas meal, you're going out for your first time trying to pick
keep
something.
things simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you can really improve it down the time. But I would say, like, cook one of these birds. If it's a goose or a guinea hen or quail. Well, quail is kind of small. It's easy to do a bigger bird. Then I say just roast it in the oven. Put inside and outside some fresh shallots, fresh garlic, fresh thyme, and fresh sage. And all these give a lot of flavors. And then salt. I don't use the salt from the store. I use actually a salt from. They get shipped from the south of France. It's kind of a granulated salt, but not too strong granulated. It's almost like flakes. So I use flour and then ground pepper. And again, I use the ground pepper and not the junk from the little jars.
Right.
And so you just salt and pepper, and then you roast it. And simple meal would be that, and then you can cook little round potatoes. They go very well with that. So you use the fat of the duck, of the meat, to take that fat aside and roast these potatoes in a Dutch oven. That's really good. It goes very well. Then if you want to go a little bit fancier, you can get some celery roots. You go to the stores and almost every time they say, "What's that?" The cashier doesn't even know what it is, but they sell it. And so it's celery roots. You cut the skin off, you slice it, cook it, and puree it. That goes so beautifully with any kind of birds.
Okay, so what kind of root? I'm missing it.
Celery root.
Oh, celery root.
Yes.
I don't notice celery.
Where is it in the grocery store?
Well, it's in that's see? Okay. All right. So if you go to grocery stores, you see this is kind of like a big ball.
Yeah.
With a little bit of a green stuff out, which is the celery, actually.
Oh.
So that's the root of the celery. And so usually they save the ball.
Yeah.
It's very a big ball. So you have to have a sharp knife. Cut it all out, clean it up, and then cut it in pieces. And then you cook it in water. And then when it's cooked, drain it, salt, pepper, of course. And then you blend it, butter, and then you have a puree. And you don't take much of that, but that puree of that mixed with the bird. If you do that puree and then a puree of carrots, and then a puree of peas, so all these are vegetables, winter vegetables too. So then you have colors on your plate, but you have a lot of flavors as well. So I usually do these kind of purees, and of course mashed potatoes. The kids have to have their mashed potatoes.
Yes.
Gotta have those.
So that's an easy dinner to do. But I like to add these purees. Sometimes I do the chestnut mixed with the apples separately, not inside the bird, but cook it separately, and then I serve it on the side as well.
Okay.
And if you really want to go fancy too, you can go some artichoke bottoms. It's going to be fresh artichokes, so it's a lot of work to clean it out, and then you stuff that with mushrooms. And so there's another thing that goes well in the winter with birds.
Is this what you
Fresh-
made last President's dinner?
Yes, correct.
Oh, I have to tell you, there was a sad moment where this was the President's dinner that Francis cooked. So really quick story. And Mike loves food, and he loves your cooking. And he had that appetizer, but he went to go bid on a silent auction item. And when he came back, I hadn't been watching, and a server removed his plate, and there had still been food left on his plate, and he was heartbroken.
Oh dear.
Anyways, but that was your artichoke mushroom.
That is very sad. Well, you should have come in the kitchen. I would have given him
Some extra.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go back.
Yeah. So anyway, this is it's a very winter again. Artichoke bottoms are really full of flavor, a winter dish, and you stuff them with mushrooms. So in that recipe, I'm doing a mix of white mushrooms and chanterelle or other high-end mushrooms. But sometimes you can just saute mushrooms. Sometimes the flavor of a fresh mushroom, steamed with a little bit of butter, salt and pepper. Sometimes you don't need to add anything else. It's just fresh parsley at the end. So, garlic is good too. I like garlic, and so you can put them with garlic butter. But this is a great side dish for any kind of bird you're serving. So all these ideas, you can also do the grapes. I do grapes during the October, early September, mid-September, early October. I buy these big white grapes, seedlesses.
Where do you buy them?
In the stores here. I want to get the big ones.
Okay.
And then you put them in jars with pure cognac. It's got to be real cognac, okay? And so you let them soak, and ideally minimum 3 months. I have some that is over a year. So what's happening is in these cognac jars, the flavor of the grape comes out in the cognac, and the cognac comes inside the grape. They do a wonderful exchange there. And so what happens is when you cook these grapes, who have been soaked in cognac, they are really full of flavor, but then you use that cognac to make your sauce. And so it's, when you do finish your sauce, don't call it gravy, let's call it sauce. And so you make a little bit of liaison with butter and flour. And by the way, you make sure when you do the liaison of butter and flour to thicken your sauce, you have to avoid two major mistakes. One is to not overcook it enough. In other words, you mix the flour and the butter and you don't cook it enough, well, your whole sauce is going to taste flour. You don't want that. But on the other hand, if you cook your butter too much and then it browns, then throw it away. It has to be yellow, goldish. If it gets brown, it's going to bring sourness to your sauce. So there's a you don't want to hurry that part. When you cook, we'll call it a roux in French, R-O-U-X. You mix the butter and the flour, make sure it's cooked enough, very gentle. After 2 or 3 minutes, when you know it's very cooked and you keep moving, then you pour in your liquid from the mushroom for the rest of the grapes, and then the sauce of the juice of your bird, and you can add a little bit of white wine, or you can add chicken stock, and then you make a sauce, and then you finish with cream, and that just makes the whole thing very smooth.
So what kind of wine? So not cheap cooking wine, I know.
That's the thing.
Where do you land?
Oh, yeah, it's a hard call because like some people really have a hard time when they see you cooking with good wine. And I say, I'm sorry, I don't take shortcuts. No, I'm not putting a $200 bottle of wine, no, but I'm not putting the $10 bottle neither. So I'm trying based on what I cook to get, if it's a red for a stew, I go usually for a solid red that will be around $30 a bottle, because there's a better flavor there than the $10 stuff. On the white wine, I go around $25, $30 a bottle as well. So that's important, the quality of the wine you put in. But of course, you get the high end to just sit separately with good friends. So you have to, based on what you cook, you choose white or red. I use the same wine for cooking than to drink after too.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes, right, Christina? Okay, so just a couple minutes, and I'm actually going to let you tell us what you think we should know about Christmas for the last couple minutes, if you have it. I know you had some notes on your ahead of time.
About Christmas itself?
Well, or Christmas and the dinner. So overall thoughts on what you should approach.
Here's the thing that I think makes it so special. That is, the more prep you are, the more you prep ahead of time, the more relaxed you will be. And that's really the key for everything. We do a lot of, we have guests all the time in our home. And when you are well prepared, you actually not just relax, but your food is okay, but you can be with your guests or your family. So be mostly prepared. Like all these purees I mentioned, you can do them a day before. So you cook the things that need to be cooked at the last minute only, so you don't have to spend your whole time running in the kitchen, and then you are so exhausted when the family and the guests arrive that you just cannot wait for them to go home. So no, the point is you want to enjoy them and therefore celebrate with them. So prep work is really important. Get things done ahead of time. That's really important. And then of course, food is a time to celebrate God, especially during the Christmas season. So you don't want to be getting down so nervous or tense about your food that you actually are missing the point of the time together. And don't worry if the grandchildren say something, Granddaddy, I don't like what you make this. And I said, Great, give it to me. And so, don't be offended. Sometimes some new thing, that's okay. Taste is something you develop, and some people may not like something. Hey, I don't like certain things, few, but I don't like them, and I won't tell you what it is. But if you give them to me, I won't take a second. But I say to keep the atmosphere of festivity, don't take it too seriously also. Enjoy it. Try to learn the best you can, and every season you can do something better, and then guess what? You have some of your kids or your friends are going to say, have you tried that? Have you tried that? Say, no, I'll do that next time. And so you're learning in the process, and that's why cooking should be a fun thing. It's work. No, don't get me wrong. It's work. It's expensive. Yes, that's part of the celebration of Christmas. So we make choices, and these choices pay off because my kids to this day have their memories of all their lives, like I did growing up, around the meals. And so create memories by having fun and glorify God through eating and drinking, because that's what He's giving these things to us for.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
we
most
really
welcome.
appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for joining us. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.